This is really interesting.
Yes, it is. It's
This is
very interesting.
I'm loving this dream. Well, hello, dreamer. I'm so happy to see you, and I'm so happy that you're on. Please tell me your dream. Welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello. I'm glad to be here. I love working dreams. I love hearing dreams. I love talking about dreams. I'm a retired healthcare professional, live outside of Washington, D.C., happily married for over 40 years, and been fooling around with dreams since I started a dream journal in 1974, and I've been actively working with dreams since 1995. So I'm excited to be here and to do this with you.
Well, thank you again. And so, without further ado, please tell me your dream.
Well, I titled it Tom Plays a Trick on Me. I'm at Tom and Bonnie's house in Baltimore. It's one of those older town row houses. It happens to be very dingy and small, but cozy. I compliment them on the place. Bonnie says that this is where she grew up. This was her childhood home. And I'm very startled by that. Then she goes into another room, maybe the kitchen, to make some tea. Tom and I are sitting on the sofa chatting. And at some point, I asked Tom where the bathroom is. Where is the loo? And he says, absolutely dead-faced, oh, there isn't one. Well, I'm stunned, but I believe him mostly. I mean, he's a very serious look on his face, but I don't really react. I'm thinking, what? Is there an outside latrine? How does that work? How come this row house was never upgraded? Bonnie grew up here. And then all of this is going through my head. And it seems like a long time. And then with a grin, Tom says, down the hall to the left. I really got you, didn't I? Well, I busted out laughing and said, yes, you sure did. I got up to go down the hall, and as I went by, I sort of, smacked him a little bit on his arm as I got up to go to the bathroom. End of dream.
Okay. I am very excited to explore this.
Me too.
Okay. To get started, let's talk a little bit about the setting of the dream, because that is very important, especially in this dream. So the setting of the dream was a house that belongs to Tom and Bonnie.
Yes.
And it seems to be Bonnie's childhood home. I tell you what, let's do. Let's start with Tom and Bonnie. Let's just riff on Tom and Bonnie. So,
okay.
Tell us a little bit about Tom.
Tom is a longtime musician friend. I've probably known him since about the late 90s. We started dancing then, and we met a lot of local musicians. And he's a fabulous guitar player who is from the area and now currently does live in Baltimore, but not in a row house. I think he lives in a single family home with Bonnie. And she is also a musician and very, very shy. We don't see her very often. I don't even remember that I've ever heard her play, but we like them both very much. Her day job has been selling guitars. She was in the guitar selling world for a long time. she might be doing something else now. And Tom's got a day job, I think, with the city, and I'm not sure what he does. They're both probably in, I would say, probably their 50s.
And the city is Baltimore.
Oh, yeah, this is definitely Baltimore.
Okay. And so can you say just 3 or 4 words about each, about Tom and about Bonnie? You said Bonnie was shy. Are there
She's
any other?
shy. I think she's very sensitive. I think she's got a very tender heart. And I think the foibles of the world, I think, get to her a lot.
Yes. Okay. That's okay. Excellent. Now, how about a couple of words about Tom along these lines? Is he more, I don't know, outgoing?
He's a little bit more outgoing. He's a little bit more, I would say he's got a teeny bit of a cynical edge to him. And absolutely loves playing music. He's interested in old time hokum music, early music, Django music. I've never heard him play anything like straight rock and roll. I hear him mostly in a hokum or a jazz context.
What is hokum? Hokum.
Hokum, actually, I had to look that word up. It's an old time music that's a little bit double entendre. It's very Americana and roots type music, maybe from the 30s and 40s. I don't know when they started calling it. I don't know the details, but it's sort of a particular subset of maybe folk and roots music with a touch of, with just a few sprinkles of blues thrown in.
Oh, okay. How do you spell hokum?
Hokum, I think. I don't think it's AM. I think it's hokum.
Okay. So it's a very American.
Oh yeah. I think so.
And it's a blend of early strands, if you will, of American music.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is really, these two folks are really interesting because here's the deal about and here's the house. Okay. As you know, the setting of the dream is all important. And it sets the tone for the message that the dream is giving. I almost feel like you should be doing this, not me. You know more about dreaming than I do, but just bear with me.
Yeah.
So the house, and I take a minute or two from time to time to have a little bit of teaching. So that's what these videos are all about. So the house, the idea of the house can be, and you tell me if this rings for you, can be as the setting of the dream. It can represent a place in psyche or the psyche itself, the house. And depending on whose house it is, if it's your own childhood home, that's one thing. If it's the house you're living in now, that's another thing. If it's some other familiar house, or that's means something else. If it's a completely unfamiliar house, it might be an unfamiliar place within your own psyche. This house, though, sounds like, from what you said, it's her house, even though in waking life, is any of this actually true? Or is this a dream?
Well, everything I've said about Bonnie and Tom are true.
Yeah.
The house, yeah. I've never, in waking life, I have never been to Tom and Bonnie's house, but I have seen pictures of it. I know where it is, and it is not a row house. It's a big old house in a neighborhood. It's a single family home.
Okay.
Old, but it's not in waking life. It is not this house. And in fact, I am very shocked when I see how small and dingy it is, because it doesn't match up with, pictures that I've seen, that they've posted or whatever in their house. So I'm really shocked to see that this is the house they live in.
All right. You know what? We're going to give row house its own page.
Okay.
Because it's a detail that has no correspondence in waking life. Therefore, we need to give it its due, I think.
Okay.
So this row house, what is a row house to begin with?
Well, they're in the cities mostly. Baltimore, I mean, every city I've ever been in has them. They sit next to each other. They all have stoops that face the street. In Baltimore, they're very close to the street. That is something that seems to be a Philly and a Baltimore thing. But these row houses don't set back very far from the street. They're not really big in this particular neighborhood. And in waking life, I have never been in one of these type of Baltimore row houses. I've been in bigger ones in a different neighborhood, but I've never been in one of these kind.
And generally, are these old?
Oh, very. These are from the late 1800s, the middle 1800s. I mean, they're old. They're some of the oldest houses in Baltimore.
So they're 100+ years old.
Ooh.
Okay. All right. So if we're thinking about this in turn, you said it was small, it was dingy. You were shocked to see this is where this was, right? And so if this is an aspect of your own psyche, what part of your psyche is very old? What part of your psyche is smaller and a little dingy and you didn't expect it? That's a question for us to think about. And the clue is going to be, it was Bonnie's.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind to me is that I had a great Aunt Bonnie who raised my mother. My mother was raised by her grandmother and 2 aunts. Bonnie got married and had a house, and then her husband died and she had another house. At some point when my parents retired, my mother went back to work for the government in Tennessee, and she stayed with her Aunt Bonnie while she worked for a year, while the house that she and my father eventually moved into was being built. And I stopped in to visit. Now, I had been to Bonnie's house many times throughout my childhood. I spent a lot of time with this. I called her aunt. She was a great aunt. And I remember being surprised when I went to visit there when my mother was staying there, because the house was so much smaller and kind of dingy. It needed a coat of paint than I remembered when I was a child. And I mean, it still was warm and cozy and inviting and all that, but I was really shocked at, wow, this isn't how I remembered it from my childhood.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. And again, there was that sense of shock that this wasn't what you expected. This bit. Okay. Do you remember what great Aunt Bonnie was like? What was she like?
Oh my, she was very spunky and independent and was always done up, number 10 paintbrushes for eyelashes and a lot of makeup and a big flashy car.
So a little bit the opposite of this other Bonnie.
Oh, very, very opposite.
Interesting.
I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
So which which Bonnie do you identify with better?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I don't think of myself as, I'm a little bit tenderhearted. I'm not particularly shy, although I can be, but I'm nowhere near as flashy as my great Aunt Bonnie was. So, I don't know. I'd say I was somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I can see, because I know you, I can see both, a little of both. From my experience of you, Dreamer, I can see a little of both. And I'm particularly interested in when the foibles of the world get to you.
Well, I have to be, for many, many years. Well, when 9/11 happened, I stopped watching television news. I
Yeah.
was so enraged and outraged by the fact that, at least initially, the television stations showed people jumping off those buildings. I spent several hours on the phone trying to get through to NBC, ABC, and CBS headquarters in New York to
stop it,
to voice my offense. I was so offended by that. I mean, I was, I don't remember ever being so angry at the news. So,
yeah.
and we read newspapers. I read the New York Times. I read the Washington Post. I sometimes look at BBC News, but it's all written. I almost never watch television news. And in the last number of years, I'm more discerning, and I limit. I don't want to be ignorant, and I don't want to be uninformed, but I also don't want to be smashed.
Sure.
And the news is very smashing, and the way it's presented is very smashing. Yes. And so I use a great deal of care with taking in the news, because too much of it is just hard.
This is really interesting.
I live in a very political town, and it's just constant. And so I make it a point to not engage.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. To have a boundary.
Out of self-preservation.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. All right. Now, so here's what's interesting. When we think of this place in psyche as represented by this row house, which has no real correspondence in waking life, it hints at Great Aunt Bonnie's old home, right? But it also, this is a place in psyche, and it was this person's, it was this person's childhood home. And so when we think about in the house of, like, when we think of great designers, this is the house of Dior, this is the house of Chanel. We know what we're going to get in that house, And so this is the house of Bonnie. And so this is a place in psyche that is referencing maybe both Bonnies here, but certainly we're in the house of Bonnie. So we just sort of bear that in mind about this. And again, what I think is interesting is that it's a small and dingy place. Now, I don't know if you remember, but years ago, there was a great teacher at the conference you and I go to, and his name was Mark Ian Barash. I don't know if you remember that.
Well, okay. I know his name. I don't know that I ever heard him, but I did read his books.
Yes, his book about his health, how you can judge your health issues sometimes, or your health issues will come to light in dreams, was what he was talking about, what his book was about. And I remember him saying, when we think about our dreams, pay attention to the things that are small and dark. And I don't know, that just sprang to mind when I saw, okay, we have to give this small, dingy little corner of my psyche, if you will, that's related to the Bonnies some attention.
Okay.
So now, boy, we took a long time to do that. All right, let's moving on. Now, Bonnie absents herself for a bit. She goes to the next room, right?
Yeah.
And there you are with Tom, and visiting with Tom, and you asked to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. In
All
fact,
right.
I say, where's the loo?
Okay. All right. Okay. The loo. Now, bathrooms have a lot. What do they mean to you?
Well, bathrooms are where I go to relieve myself. They're where I put on my makeup. They're where I take a bath or a shower. You know, as our late great teacher used to say, they are places of pretty much complete authenticity because, you know, we go to the bathroom, we're naked, we're completely exposed. So generally in the bathroom, we're pretty authentic.
Yeah, so there's an elimination, there's an application of persona, there's a cleansing. And one thing I think about with bathrooms is generally we're in there all by ourselves.
Yeah, alone.
If we're lucky, if the dog didn't follow us in,
Exactly.
or a toddler doesn't come along. And so usually we're in there all by ourselves, and often it's an inner room
Yes.
in the house. So I'm going to add that, but I'm going to add it in a different color because I'm saying it. It's an inner room. And so we're thinking about an inner space in our own psyche, that sanctum sanctorum, that very inner space in our own psyche. That is where we are really ourselves, where we can drop, any of the persona, either, we can drop all that, we can wash that off, we can relieve ourselves of that. We are really, really ourselves. So this is what you're asking for.
Yes.
You're asking for this. Okay. And then the answer to that question from Tom is
there isn't one.
There isn't one. What a thing to say. Now, this gets deep real fast. Are you doing some inner work and struggling with it?
Well, you know, that's interesting. I am doing some inner work. I'm doing this particular brain training experience that I've known about for a long, long time. And it's difficult in that I'm trying to teach. It involves neuroplasticity, and I'm trying to teach my brain new things. And it is very hard.
Okay. That is very interesting. And can you say a little bit more, or if you feel like it, about what this is?
Well, it's based on the work of a woman named Barbara Arrowsmith Young.
Okay, I've heard this name. Yeah.
Okay, and she was born, she's in her middle 70s, born in Canada with profound learning disabilities.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm gonna keep it super simple.
Please.
She learned about some work that was done by a Polish neurophysiologist after World War II, working with head injured soldiers. And she took some of his work and somehow managed to figure out some cognitive exercises to help her with her learning disabilities. And down the road, she ended up founding schools that use many of the techniques that she created. And I learned about it 30 some odd years ago and knew an older man who did it for a year and was quite amazed. He had lots and lots of learning disabilities. Now you can do it online. You couldn't then. And I just decided a number of months ago that I wanted to try this. So I've been
Cool.
doing it. I've just finished my 3rd month, and I'm going to sign on for another 3 months. And it's very interesting to watch my brain learn new paths.
And it's Barbara Aerosmith, what?
Young,
Young, okay.
she wrote a book called The Woman Who Changed Her Brain. And the name of the brain training school is Aerosmith, like the band.
Yeah, I have heard of this, and in fact am aware of a preteen who are using these exercises for what it is you describe. There's some to use the current term, there's some neurodiversity.
Yep.
And his parents found this.
Yes.
And it is fascinating. And that is helping him. It's not changing his personality, but it is helping him cope in a regular school setting.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
well,
that
it's
is
used,
so cool.
It's used for learning disabilities. It's used for helping people of a neurodiversity background. It helps people who have had brain injury, traumatic, brain injuries, ADDs, stuff like that. It's applicable in a number of cases.
Oh, that's the best. That's so well, bravo. Yay, you for this is, oh my gosh. You're an advertisement for neuroplasticity and keeping things going, or learning more. Oh man, bravo. Congratulations. This is great.
Thanks. Well, I'm not young. I would like my memory to be improved. I had no fractures or concussions, but when I was a young woman of, as we used to say back then, tomboy mentality, I encountered many hard objects with my head. And, I just think it's not a bad idea to keep your brain flexible.
It's a great idea. This is great. Okay, so you're doing this very challenging sort of inner brain work.
Yes.
So maybe the dream is referencing that. Maybe the dream is commenting on that. Is there anything else the dream might be commenting on of an inner nature?
Well, I always am walking around the edges of trying to understand and explore and find motivation for expressing creativity in ways that I have a lot of artistically creative people in my life. My father was a self-taught artist and musician. I have a brother who's a very accomplished artist and musician. I have lots and lots of friends that are artists and musicians. And I don't really do a lot with that other than quilting, which I've been doing for 30 years. But there's a place where I feel like there's something I don't get about creativity. And I don't even know what it is, but there's something there that I'm always I circle it and circle it and circle it. And there's some understanding or connection or integration that I'm trying to do, but I can't even really articulate it. So that, and these two people happen to be very creative. And so of all the people I know that I could have had in this dream, why those people? I could have had, a friend who's a mathematician, or a friend who's, been on planning boards, or, a friend who's an attorney. But, I chose it, my dream chose these two very creative people, one who is very much out there in the world doing it, and the other who is much more shy and reticent.
Brilliant. I think that absolutely is part of what we're on to here. Like you say, your dream could have picked anybody.
Yeah.
Anybody, but your dream chose creative people. And the idea of these brain exercises and looking for a way to express yourself creatively. I think this is brilliant. Okay, so looking for that inner place that is possibly the creative source.
Yeah.
Could I'm putting words in your mouth.
The authentic creative stuff. I mean, what I'm thinking of, when I worked this dream before with one of my dream groups, and we didn't go down this road at all. But what I'm thinking about is the bathroom being a place to express one's authentic self. And, I never thought about it this way, but expressing your creative, your authentic self is also a way of expressing your authentic creativity, whatever that might be.
Right.
And, I'm looking for this place.
Yes. Yes.
And
that's right.
Initially, I'm told there isn't one.
Yes.
And I'm kind of gobsmacked by that. I can't even imagine that. That is so bizarre to me.
Uh-huh. Yes, that's right. Again,
and then later, he's like the trickster.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. So back to Tom. And in the dream, at least, he is playing that part. Right?
And I would say in waking life, he's one of those fellas that's got a little twinkle in his eye, and he might have, in waking life, he might have a trickster component in his waking life identity.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Tell me what you think of the motif, the archetype of the trickster. What's the trickster for?
The trickster is to wake us up and to jolt us. For me, the trickster is a way to jolt us out of our ordinary reality. He's sort of like the Zen cone master.
Indeed.
And he throws things at us that are completely unanticipated and unexpected to force us to learn new ways of thinking. I mean, it's really interesting because it's like he's the bringer of neuroplasticity at a certain level.
That's just what I was thinking, to learn things differently. Isn't that what you're doing over here with brain training? Yeah. Yeah. Man, this is cool. What do you think?
Well, and the idea of going to someone's house and asking where's the bathroom and them saying completely deadpan, completely serious, as though it's the most ordinary thing in the world. Oh, we don't have one.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, think about how strange that would feel to you.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have a,
we're not living out, we're not visiting somebody in the shack out in the middle of, wherever where you would expect an outhouse. You're in Baltimore, for crying out loud. You're in a city with row houses, and we don't have one. It's the strangest thing. And I don't recognize right away that I'm being, snookered. I take him at his word, because it never occurs to me that someone would do that.
Well, he as the trickster, he's done his job. He's jolted you. He's given you the jolt. He has done his job. And
one of the things that was so interesting about this dream is that between the time he said, "Oh, we don't have one," and the time he then said, it's down the hall to the left. Gotcha, didn't I? There was just this, there was a lot of space. There was a lot of space in my head where I'm running through, really? And I'm trying to find things that would make it make sense. And I hadn't quite gotten to, I think he's pulling my leg. I hadn't gotten there yet. I mean, I might have, when he said, boom, it's down the hall to the left, and I gotcha. But that was really interesting for me to have that space.
In the dream.
Yeah, of the thoughts going here and here and here. I'm trying to somehow make sense of it, and it's not working.
Well, that reminds me though of what you said a few minutes ago, which was in looking for a way to express yourself creatively and authentically. You said, I go round and round and round looking for that. And
Yeah,
I just hear it in the, wait a minute, wait a minute. Where is the bathroom? Wait, is there really not a bathroom or what?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I just kind of hear a little bit of an echo of that in that search, you know,
yes.
where where is this place in me that I can express myself creatively? Well, it's not here. Ha 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 ha. Ha. But then he fesses up.
Yes.
Then and he says down the hall and to the left. Okay. I think that requires a little of our attention too. And what I mean by that is down the hall and to the left. I think I think this is significant.
Okay.
What he finally when he finally tells you where to find what you're looking for.
Uh-huh.
So, what do you think about when you think about hallways?
Well, there've been very few places I've lived in my life that have not had hallways. I'm very, for some reason, I'm very comfortable with hallways. There's hallways in school. There's been
Mm-hmm.
hallways in most of my houses. I don't know. They
What are they
seem
for?
like normal parts of buildings to me. They're not scary to me. They're not
Mm-hmm.
weird. They're just like, I don't know, they're sort of normal.
What's a hallway for?
Well, it's to connect you from
Ah,
one place to another,
right,
from one
right.
end of a building to another, or yeah.
So it's a way to connect. It's a
Uh-huh.
connection. Okay. If I can add to that just for a second, it's also, if you want to call it, it's a transitional place.
Yes.
It's a place of transition. You're moving from point A to point B down the hall.
Yeah.
Um, it, to throw a word out, it can be thought of as a liminal space, the in
Yes.
between space,
Yes.
meaning the word liminal is related to like a threshold or a doorway.
Yes.
It's a neither here nor there quite yet, but it's the
Yes.
in between space, like a hallway. It's like a hallway. So this idea down the hall, so to find the connection, to go through a transition, something along these lines, down the hall. And then what does to the left mean to you?
Well, I mean, the left is, I mean, politically, I probably lean a bit to the left. The
Okay.
left has to do with, um, in palmistry, the left has to do with the mother, the energy of the anima. To the left is like when I think about turning right or turning left, I feel comfortable with making a left hand turn.
Are you left-handed?
No, I'm right handed.
Okay. So one idea that springs to mind is that for right-handed people, the the left is the undeveloped side.
Okay.
That's an idea. The another idea is that our left hand, our left side of our body is connected to our right brain, and our right hand
Yes.
is connected to our left brain. And there's some
Yes.
evidence to indicate that the left brain, right hand, right? It's the part of us that's logical, reasonable, keeps up with the time, keeps up with the calendar, has, the to-do list going, the executive function, all that good stuff. While the right brain Left hand is much different. It's very creative.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Well,
linear.
it's not
It-
linear, and it's completely, in my opinion, for the most part, not as valued in the culture we live in.
right,
We're really kind of addicted to the left brain world,
right, right.
which is one of the reasons that I love dream work, because my perception of dream work is it takes us right into the right brain. And I'm of the opinion that there is great wisdom to be had from the nonlinear world.
Amen, sister. Preach it to the choir. I think that is quite significant. So the trickster has jolted you out of something and said, now go connect and turn to wisdom.
Mhm.
Holy crap. What do you think?
Well, it's very interesting because the way let's see if I can say this. I don't know if I can say this clearly, but I think one of the ways I think about creativity is very concrete,
Okay.
in that you create a song, you create a painting, you create a dance, or someone creates a sculpture, but there's something physical that is the outgrowth of that. And I
Yes.
think that's what I've been thinking about all these years when I think about um, expressing my creativity.
Make
But,
something.
it's beginning to occur to me
Yeah.
that perhaps that's not the medium.
Oh,
That,
okay.
I've been kind of stuck slash frustrated slash impatient with, what is my medium?
Ah, yes, yes.
And I haven't, other than quilting, which I enjoy, but and I don't make up my own patterns for the most part. I
Mm-hmm.
take a pattern that's already there. I might tweak it a little bit, but I choose the fabrics I want, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't invent patterns for the most part.
Yeah.
And I keep thinking, I want to do something artistic with quilts that doesn't involve patterns, but I don't quite, I mean, I sort of get a little bit there, but what I'm now thinking as we're having this conversation is that I think I'm relatively creative in the way that I think. And
Uh-huh.
I think that perhaps I've been looking in the wrong world for feeling like I'm having a creative outlet,
Yeah.
in that maybe my creativity is being and is to be expressed in a less concrete way than some sort of physical product.
Brilliant. This is brilliant.
And
Brilliant.
so, how do I want to say this? It's sort of like maybe my frustration is that I'm looking to do something that may not be my ilk, that may
Yeah.
not be my language.
Yeah.
And then of course it's going to be frustrating if I'm thinking, well, it needs to be something that's in this land,
Mm-hmm.
of the land of the concrete, but perhaps that's not the land. The right
Yes.
brain is not quite so concrete.
In indeed. Yes. Yeah. This is really interesting.
Yes, it is. It's
This is
very interesting.
I'm loving this dream so much.
Well, and I love the fact that, I used the word medium
Yes.
a number of times. And historically, mediums are people who they're not really doing anything concrete, They're
That's
kind of,
right.
they're in another part of the world and the brain and the manifestation of energy that doesn't necessarily have a concrete component to it, other than
Yes.
I see this or I see that or this is coming to me or something like that.
Very
And
intuitive. A lot of
yes,
intuitive. Yeah, yeah.
yes. And I do know that that is the case for me. I do know that I got a lot of that from my mother.
Ah, ah. Yeah. Who was Aunt
Related to great Aunt Bonnie.
Aunt Bonnie? Right, right, right. Wow. Wowee. Don't you love this dream?
I do.
I love it. Let me ask you, Dreamer, do you think we got somewhere?
Oh, definitely. I would have never, ever, ever, ever made any of these connections. I mean, the connections I made with the other dream group were extremely helpful and very
Yeah.
valuable. This is a whole different, what's the word I want to say, perspective that I really never would. I don't think I would have thought of this in this way.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the fact that we've unpacked and unraveled it in a kind of, what's the word they use now that I find hysterical, in a more granular way.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and I feel like there's some details that are relevant in ways that I didn't really understand the first
Mm-hmm.
time through this.
Oh, did you notice also you equated the left with mother and you just said you got that from mother?
Uh-huh.
So just I'm just curious, will you go back to your dream group and give them follow up since y'all worked
Yeah,
that
I may
dream
say, I'm
together?
assuming this will be available, that I could go look at it on YouTube.
Yes, and in addition to that, your gift for playing with me today is that I will send you all this via mail. I will send you these sheets.
Okay. You'll send them the actual hard copies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, that's your party favor.
Okay, thanks. That sounds great.
Okay, now, what will you do to honor this dream?
That's a great question. You know, this is something I struggle with in waking life. Like, how's the best way to honor a dream? I don't feel like I want to draw a picture so much. Well, the other thing I want to say before I say that, it just occurred to me that in order for me, this is very paradoxical. In order for me to get an answer, the female had to leave the room.
Oh, right, right. Gosh, good job, ma'am. Good job.
So I
Good
don't know why
job.
that's important, but it's important.
Yeah, that sort of tender-hearted aspect had to leave the room.
Yeah, really, really shy, really tender, really, really introverted. I think maybe what I might do is, I have all these little things. I have all these little things on my altar and little
Yeah, yeah.
rocks and little creatures. And, what I might do is set them in a place where they represent being in that house with the little Bonnie creature farther away and me and Tom sitting next to each other on the sofa. I might create what's that called? A tableau?
Yes,
Is that the word?
yes,
And I could do it on a shelf in my bathroom.
yes, yes. There you go. Brilliant. To set up your sacred objects, because those are the little things we have on our altars, right? They're
Yeah.
sacred. They are sacred.
Well, and I have them all over the house. I mean, they're in all kinds of windowsills, and I have a little basket of rocks in the bathroom, and
You
I've
should
got
see
some stuff in the kitchen. I mean, it's all over when I think about it, my sacred objects, there is an altar, but they're also all over the house.
you should see this office. Seriously. I have a big old window. I'll have to show our viewers sometimes. And in each corner of the window and the windowsill, I got a collection of all sorts of things. So,
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
are you happy with this? Are you happy with
I
our
am
work?
ecstatically happy with this. I'm very pleased because it's given me something completely unexpected to think about.
It's been my experience, dreamer, that dreams continue to unfold, maybe forever.
Yeah, yeah.
That we can circle back and revisit dreams over and over and over again, and once again see something new, see something relevant. Over my shoulder over here, you see this picture of eggs. That I had a very significant dream about eggs when I was a teenager. So that was 50 years ago. And that dream still speaks to me. So
Mhm.
I'm a huge believer in revisiting dreams from all kinds of perspectives, as many as possible.
Well,
So
and I think the richness, what's the word I want to say? I think that the richness and the treasures from dreams are infinite.
I do too. I do too. Yep. Thank you. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here today and for sharing this profound dream. And I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me too. Me too. This has been exciting and deeply rewarding. So thank you so much.